We will walk through a clear, step-by-step guide to setting up MitID for international businesses looking to operate in Denmark or interact with Danish authorities and counterparties. MitID is Denmark's national digital ID solution and is essential for secure access to public services, tax systems, banking, and a broad range of private sector platforms. For international companies, establishing MitID correctly is not only a compliance requirement, but also a practical enabler for efficient operations, from registering entities to managing digital signatures and authorizations. We will start with the prerequisites, then move through registration, identity validation, business configuration, role management, and operational best practices, so that you leave with a clear roadmap and an understanding of the key decision points. To begin, your first step as an international business is to clarify your legal presence in Denmark. If you plan to operate with a Danish legal entity, such as an APS or AS, you will need to register that entity with the Danish Business Authority and obtain a central business registration number, known as a CVR. This CVR number uniquely identifies your company in Denmark and is a core data point throughout the MitID setup process. If you will not establish a full legal entity but still need access, you should confirm which Danish systems you must use and whether you can operate via local agents, advisors, or designated representatives who already hold MitID credentials. In many cases, banks, law firms, or accounting firms in Denmark serve as intermediaries, but long-term efficiency and control usually favor having direct access via your own MitID business setup. Once you have clarity on the legal structure, the second step is to designate who will act as the primary legal representative for digital purposes. Typically, this is an executive or board member formally registered as having signing rights for the company in the Danish corporate registry. This individual's role is critical. They will be responsible for initiating the MitID business enrollment, approving access rights, and potentially signing key digital documents. For foreign-based representatives, you must ensure they have the necessary identity documentation, such as passports and, in some cases, local identification from their home jurisdiction. Expect that these documents may need to be presented physically or verified via a trusted digital onboarding process, depending on the provider channel you choose. The third step is to initiate the MitID business registration itself. This is done online through the official MitID business portal, where you will be guided to create a business profile tied to your CVR number. During this process, you will provide core company information, contact details, and confirm the identity of the legal representative. If your company does not yet appear correctly in the Danish registers, you should resolve that first, as inconsistencies between legal records and registration data are a common source of delays. At this stage, you will also choose how you want to manage MitID within your organization, whether centrally through a small administrative team or in a more decentralized way, where business units or local offices manage access for their respective users. The fourth step is identity verification for the key individuals who will hold MitID credentials. MitID relies on strong authentication standards, so you can expect a thorough Know Your Customer process, similar to onboarding with a bank. International executives may need to verify their identity through a Danish bank, a designated MitID partner, or, in some cases, at a physical location, such as a Danish embassy or consulate, or an appointed verification agent. It is important to plan for timing here. If your leadership team is not frequently in Denmark, coordinating identity verification in advance can prevent bottlenecks. Align your internal timeline for starting operations, signing contracts, or filing with Danish authorities with the expected lead time for MitID issuance, as it may range from a few days to several weeks depending on complexity and documentation. Once your core representatives have been verified and MitID is activated, the fifth step is to configure MitID business to reflect your organization's structure and risk profile. Within the portal, you will set up roles and permissions that control who can access what: tax filings, corporate registry changes, e-box digital mail, banking interfaces, and other services. For international businesses, a best practice is to design a role model that mirrors your internal governance. For example, differentiating between global finance, local Danish finance, legal, HR, and IT administrators. Define which actions require single versus dual approval, particularly for high-risk activities such as changing bank details or granting broad access rights. Ensure that your design complies with your global internal controls frameworks, including segregation of duties and authorization limits. The sixth step is onboarding internal users. This means inviting employees, consultants, or local managers who require access, assigning them the appropriate roles, and guiding them through their own MitID setup. For employees who are not Danish residents, additional identity checks may apply, and some might need to rely on local partners or shared service centers that already hold MitID. Develop a short internal onboarding guide that explains what MitID is, how to use it securely, how to handle login devices or apps, and whom to contact if they encounter issues. Encouraging disciplined use from the outset will minimize support overhead and reduce security risks. At this point, you should also align with your IT and cybersecurity teams. The seventh step is to integrate MitID into your broader security and compliance framework. Treat MitID as a critical authentication layer. Ensure that it is reflected in your access management policies, incident response procedures, and audit routines. Monitor who has which rights, conduct periodic access reviews, and define explicit offboarding steps for when employees leave the organization or change roles. Because MitID is widely trusted in Denmark, many key transactions will rely on it as proof of identity and authorization, so mismanagement can have real operational and legal consequences. Automating notifications for role changes and implementing clear approval workflows will help you maintain a clean and compliant environment. The eighth step is to test real-life use cases before you fully rely on MitID for time-sensitive activities. For example, log into the Danish tax portal, access the corporate registry, sign a test document, and confirm receipt of digital mail. Validate that the right people can access the right services and that your dual approval controls, where configured, work as intended. Use this testing phase to capture feedback from users and adjust roles or guidance as needed. Document these test results, as they can form part of your internal audit trail and help demonstrate that your MitID configuration is aligned with your company's risk and compliance standards. Finally, the ninth step is to establish ongoing governance and maintenance. MitID, like any digital identity system, evolves over time. New services are added, regulatory requirements change, and your own organization will grow and transform. Assign clear ownership for MitID business within your company, often within the finance, legal, or shared services function, with strong cooperation from IT security. Set a cadence to review access rights, update documentation, and communicate any changes in processes to affected stakeholders. Keep a close eye on updates from Danish authorities, banks, and service providers, as they may introduce new functionalities, security requirements, or alternative onboarding paths that can simplify life for international users. By following these structured steps, clarifying your legal presence, appointing a digital representative, registering with MitID business, completing identity verification, configuring roles, onboarding users, integrating with your security framework, testing real-life scenarios, and formalizing governance, you can set up MitID in a way that is secure, compliant, and efficient for your international business operations in Denmark. This preparation will not only help you meet local requirements, but also give you a robust platform for trusted digital interactions with Danish partners, customers, and authorities as your presence in Denmark grows.